Joining me now is Seth Kaplan, managing partner for Airline Weekly, an aviation industry publication. Seth, welcome.
Good to be here, Asieh.
So this is a big deal, the fact that they found the cockpit voice recorder. So walk us through the process. What will they do with this piece of equipment? Yeah,
well, as we heard in that report, it is damaged. And so that does present some additional challenges, but not insurmountable ones. My mind goes back just last year to the Germanwings crash, for example, where not just any black box, but indeed the voice recorder too had been damaged. And in fact, it proved very useful. But that can take, well, we'll see here, but a matter of days or more to assemble everything. But yeah, then they'll be listening to it, and the question is, whether or not it contains anything useful. If there was something very sudden, then it could come down to literally analyzing frames, the last few milliseconds of the tape to try to find out what happened. Or did the pilots know that something was going wrong? And we have those indications so far preliminarily that indeed something might have been going wrong, a fire or something else.
So something obviously went wrong, but the crew on board did not appear to send any kind of distress signal.
They didn't, and that's useful information, but it doesn't necessarily tell us anything. Doesn't necessarily, for example, tell us that they didn't know something was going on, because there's a rule among pilots. Basically you fly the plane first. They say, aviate, then navigate, then communicate. And so while certainly you want to keep air traffic control apprised of what's going on, if it's a choice in an emergency between trying to regain control of the plane and communicating, you'd be trying to regain control of the plane first. So that doesn't in and of itself prove anything, although certainly useful information, as you said, to know that they obviously didn't have the time to at least communicate that something was wrong.
And the fact that the memory unit was intact, even though actual cockpit voice recorder was damaged, this is significant, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's certainly not helpful. You would want for the whole thing to be intact, obviously. You also want to find the data recorder. Important to note that, too.
By the way, are you surprised they haven't found that yet?
Not necessarily. I mean, typically they'll find one before the other, but I can't think of an instance where they found one and never ended up finding the other. So I think here, we're in a situation where, for as daunting as it was, a debris field at the bottom of the ocean, rather deep, to have found that debris field within a month, while the pings, the signals are still emitting, which makes it easier to locate it, actually rather good compared to some other incidents. I'm not even speaking of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, where we still haven't found anything, but even other incidents where it took longer and they did ultimately find it. So I think they'll find the data recorder. Would be useful if it hadn't been damaged, but that's not necessarily going to stop them from making progress.
So one expert told us the data recorder tells you what happened, the voice recorder tells you why it happened. Is that accurate?
Well, that's a good way to look at it. Certainly also tells you, for example, look, in the case of Germanwings I mentioned, and certainly no evidence of this here, you had the pilot unfortunately actually involved, culpable for what happened. But yeah, the question is, was there some kind of a struggle in the cockpit, for example? Those are the kinds of things that you would learn from the voice recorder.
Well, see, as always, we appreciate you. Thank you so much, Seth Kaplan. Thanks for being here.
Likewise, Asieh. Thank you.